Can your employer reduce your salary? Can your employer give you a demotion in pay? Can your employer terminate your employment with such reasons as due to recent business changes or due to recent issues in the business? Let's analyze the case of one Mr. Abubakar Abdul Kabir. Abubakar Abdul Kadir is a pilot that was employed with one Asman Air Services Limited. He was employed sometime, I don't even remember his employment date, but in 2020, because of COVID-19, there was this memo that circulated that all pilot salary was going to be reduced. They were going to cut the salary, they were going to cut all pilots' pay. When he was employed, his contract of employment stated that he was going to be paid 3 million naira every month. That means a monthly salary of 3 million naira. As at the time this memo went out in the company that, stating that all pilot salaries are going to be cut down, his salary reduced from 3 million naira to about 571,000 with some change, 571,420. And yeah, they kept on working, right? All the pilots kept on working. But on the 6th of, I think, November, either 6th of November or 6th of August, his employment contract was terminated. And the reason stated in the employment contract was very simple. They said they were terminating him because of recent happenings in the company. I don't know if I quoted that verbatim, but that was what the letter actually suggested. So this guy took them to court. He took Asman Services to court. The case shall drag and drag from whenever it was sent to court till the 10th of March 2026. On the 10th of March 2026, the court ruled in favor of the claimant, which is the pilots, Mr. Abubakar Abdul Kadir. Now, the reason is because there were a lot of reasons. So, the first reason was because the court refused to accept that his salary demotion was legal. And the reason is because, first, the court asked for a document stating that, okay, this contract was actually changed. But the only documents that the company could provide was a memo that circulated within the organization stating that pilot salary generally was going to be cut. There was no specific contract binding this new salary, binding the employer and the employee on this new salary. So the courts were saying that if there's going to be a different salary from what was initially agreed upon his joining the organization, there's supposed to be a new contract, okay? There's supposed to be a new contract agreement signed by both parties. The employer saying, this is what I can pay you now because of some business difficulties that I am having, and the employee saying, I'm fine with what you are paying me now. But there was nothing like that. The only thing the company could provide was a memo. For those of you that might be asking, he was informed and he continued working. If you go back to some of my old videos, you will understand that there was a time I spoke about a particular type of contract called contract of adhesion, and I mentioned there that the contract relationship between an employee and an employer are generally referred to as contracts of adhesion. And the reason it is called contract of adhesion is because the employer-employee contract allows for one person to have the upper hand, and that is the employer. The contract cannot or is assumed not to favor the employee as much as it favors the employer. Okay, so for that reason, it cannot be accepted in totality that, okay, they saw the memo and then they continued working. That is like acceptance by conduct. I think that's a thing in law. I think that should be contract law. There's something called acceptance by conduct. Like, okay, in this case, a memo went out and the employees maybe did not agree with the new salary cut, but they didn't leave. So that means they accepted by their conduct of not leaving. That's acceptance by conduct. And I think that's a clause in contract law. But But that didn't fly here because of the theory of contracts of adhesion. It is believed that the employee may not have a choice. So when they were faced with that, your salary is reduced clause or your salary is reduced memo, they may not have the willpower to say, I want to stop, because they are fighting for survival. They didn't have any other choice. Yeah, this story long. Long song. The memo thing was not accepted because it's not binding on both parties to that contract. He was actually given 1 month notice period, just as his contract stated. He was paid 1 month salary in lieu of notice period, but he was paid the new salary, the reduced salary, and not the 3 million naira. So because the court said that they did not accept that reduction in pay, the court mandated the company, that's Asman Air Services Limited, to pay the balance of that 3 million naira, which is about 2 million plus. The claimant, which is the man, Mr. Abubakar, he was demanding damages from the organization, and the court allowed that. In fact, the court stated that the company should pay him 5 million naira in damages. Arguments around the fact that the reason for the termination was not clearly spelled out. It was just recent happenings in the organization. And in court, the court actually asked the company, what are these recent happenings in the organization? The company said it was restructuring. Okay, give us a form or a document that proves that this business actually restructured, like an evidence to prove their claim. But they could not present any evidence to prove this claim, and they could also not present a contractual document stating that this staff accepted the new pay. The court had to compel the organization to not just pay the balance of that salary that they didn't pay, okay, but also to pay 5 million naira in damages. Now, this is another part of the story. Apparently, Asman Services Limited was owing their employees for 3 months. So Mr. Abubakar came to court with that also stated in his case. When the organization was asked why they didn't pay, the organization said that they communicated with all the staff because airlines were grounded in 2020 due to COVID-19. So they communicated with all the staff that, all the staff are either going to choose between compulsory leave and redundancy. And, because they were helping the staff, and because I think the staff also made the choice, I think something around that. But compulsory leave was sent across to all the staff members. So that means all the staff were placed on compulsory leave without pay. Now, is it wrong for the employer to place an employee on compulsory leave without pay? No, it is not inherently wrong. However, it is something that the employer has to include in the contract of engagement, contract of employment policy, or policy documents, or communicated expressly with the staff via email or other means. Now, the company could also not provide sufficient documents supporting this claim that the staff were aware of it and the staff agreed to going on compulsory leave without pay. So the court mandated the company to pay him 3 million naira monthly, his initial salary, for the 3 months that he was not paid in the year 2020. So if you want to count this money now, it has entered 9 million naira thereabout, 9 million plus, close to 10 million thereabout. So what is your take home as an employer? As an employer of labor, before you make any contract, now I need to state this: it is not wrong for the employer to exercise their rights to terminate. However, the process of that termination has to be fair. Don't forget, I've said it in almost all my videos, previous and recent, that the NICN has the right to rule on employment matters using international best practices. And for international best practice, you should give a reasonable reason for termination. That is why Abubakar had an upper hand in this kind of scenario. So basically, you're not allowed to just terminate people. If there is a business restructuring, you can terminate based on business restructuring, but you have to have substantial evidence to support your business restructuring point. If at all it comes to the law court for leave and all of that, please communicate any difficulties you have with staff members and communicate a leave without pay, period. But if your staff members refuse to take a leave without pay, period, please and please and please and please ensure that you terminate their appointments in line with their contractual agreements. If it is 1 month in lieu, pay the 1 month in lieu in full. If you have to demote any staff salary, if you have to demote any staff in a manner that it will affect their pay, then please it's advisable that you write, in fact, all demotions, let there be a contract of employment, a new contract of employment stating the date, the effective date of that demotion, stating the salary that will be paid henceforth, and let the staff sign it in agreement with the organization. And for the employee, you know it already, no employer can reduce your salary without your consent. It shouldn't just be a notification, you should be giving your consent to that notification. Also, no employer should actually just place you on compulsory leave just because they feel like it. It should be something you decide to do. It is your choice, it is your world and your choice. See you again next time. Thank you for sticking with us. Here with Emma here for you.